Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a young and accomplished entrepreneur from the energy sector from Chennai, India, Mr. Saswat Das. Saswat, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh.
Saswat is the founder and director of Sunmeister Energy. I hope I have the pronunciation right. So we're going to talk energy with Saswat. And he was just telling me that his focus is on rooftop solar. So we'll talk energy and rooftop solar. So Saswat, when I was reading about you, you say that you're an emerging energy solutions company working at the intersection of solar energy, energy efficiency, and energy storage. Now, there are many things that you're doing in this.
Yes.
Help me understand this, maybe with some examples.
Yeah, I think it's actually pretty simple, though the jargon sounds complicated. The thing is, what you're first looking at is promoting energy efficiency. I mean, energy best saved is energy not used, right? So if you didn't use a thing, you just turned off the lights.
Correct.
That's the best form of conservation. The next best thing you could do is use an energy efficient equipment. The next thing is that you could supplement that energy requirement from a renewable source. And the thing is, since we are primarily working with solar has a limitation in terms of it works during the day and not in the night. And also weather is unpredictable, though it's fairly predictable. You use it as a combined solution with energy storage to have, as streamlined energy and power as possible. So we're building this solution in a customized fashion for our end customers.
Wonderful. So before I get into more discussions on energy, what is the background of the word or the name Sunmeister?
Okay, interesting. Actually, there are two lessons from it. One is, I did a fair amount of work for a Danish company for a long time.
Okay.
And we used to be called Maskenmeisters. So, and I kind of like that word a lot. And it means craftsman.
Okay.
And I identify with that. So we started Sunmeister. But yes, it's ultimately a German or Scandinavian word. So the pronunciation in India it can take a few, pot shots as such.
Correct.
We've been even called Sunmeister and Sunmeister in the works. So yeah.
Okay, wonderful. And that's always the challenge of branding. So I don't know if you remember some of the old ones, you're too young, but something like even a Hext. They ran a series of campaigns on how to pronounce their name.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll have to do that at some stage when you are much bigger. But my next question to you is from the perspective of an entrepreneur.
Yes.
What have been some of your challenges and learnings as you are building Sunmeister?
Yeah. See, I'm a first generation entrepreneur. I have no background as such. So many of the things that we take for granted, like I was an employee for the longest possible time. So you're used to structure. And when you leave early and you're not creating companies or not working at the structural level, you take a lot of things for granted. So I came back to India and I started this. And I had no idea about the amount of compliance which is required. It's not just an idea. So compliance. And then the second thing was, creating a structure for us to be able to deliver. I think those bottlenecks that we create, because the industry will react in various ways, the working environment will change. But if you have a good product and you have a good platform to dish it out regularly, I think these were challenges which I definitely faced. One more big thing was I did face the impact of a lot of policy decisions from the government.
Okay.
Because at this point, it was a fairly new concept. And till date, there is no clarity in terms of what do we do with the renewable energy, or how do we use solar energy best, even though technology is available.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So tell me a little bit now about Sunmeister Energy and what are you doing?
Yeah. See, I mean, my background has been more with the oil industry prior to this. And for me, it's been a 180-degree switch. It was more about looking back and saying that, what did I do to contribute to mitigate this? So what we've done is, over the last 8 years, is trained tier 3, tier 4 town boys to start with, because introducing them to cutting edge technology, which they normally wouldn't have access to. So from a social perspective, the idea was always to go with the kids who've not had the best of opportunity. The apprenticeship model was something that we went back to, getting more apprenticeship students to join the team, see if this works for them, and then become good quality engineers. The major focus has been that, okay, you would think that, oh, solar is green, so it should have easy absorption. The thing is, you realize that it's a commercial decision ultimately.
Correct.
So as long as there's no money being earned, so somehow solar got branded into this whole return on investment platform. Even though there are so many other contributions it could have on a societal level, people could not see past that. So as soon as I started it, my projects were very, very few. And there were very few people who were extremely green-minded at that point. The upfront cost was very high. So what we did is we evangelized about the subject. We spoke a lot about the quality of systems, because after you put in the capex, if your system does not deliver, see, solar has a very low entry barrier. So there are a lot of players. So the important thing here was that we spoke about the safety standards. We are working in ground zero, where we have cyclones, the works. We bring in transparent platforms so that they are able to monitor the plants. The system is safe, the people are safe, the buildings are safe. So our specialization is on a turnkey basis, but holistically looking at how energy feeds everything that they have.
So what you're really saying, Saswat, is that you come in as the solutions provider for the consumer or the customer and the vendor. Is that my understanding?
No. So the thing is, we are more like the PC assemblers.
Okay.
In the sense that there is a requirement. We tell them that, hey, these are the specs. This is what you should be looking at. There are hundreds of players in the segment, but you cannot, look at each product and evaluate it for its merits, because you're not part of that industry typically, right?
Right.
So we evangelize, we tell them what are the pros and cons about it, and what is the feasibility. That's the first and foremost. Before a conversation happens, you need to do the feasibility to understand what can solar do for you in the first place, and then creative solutions around it, in the sense that, okay, how best can I use solar, not just for my energy generation, but can I have a kitchen garden? Can I have a gazebo? Can I build a carport with it? How do you create a dual purpose out of it?
Wonderful. And, so, one of the things that, and I don't know much about solar or and further rooftop solar, but how does the economics of solar work for a household?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question, actually. This is something which has been changing constantly. See, the thing is, a lot of rooftop solar is, you have 2-3 models where you have an upfront capex kind of thing, you have structured finance based thing, you have rent your roof kind of models. But all in all, each state has its own solar policy. So at a country level, it's not a uniform thing that everybody gets the same.
Okay.
Like the tariff you're paying in Gurgaon is upwards of 10 or 12 rupees possibly. In Mumbai, it could be 15 rupees. In Chennai, it's 5.5
Okay.
to 6 rupees. And in Pondicherry, being a center controlled place, it's slightly lower. So the return on investment varies, though the cost of the components remain the same. The other important thing is for a house owner, I think, see, there are some recent announcements where the increase in duty of solar modules has been changed to about 40%, has been increased by 40%.
Okay.
And overall impacting the cost by about 66%.
Wow.
So it's very difficult. The end user does not get to claim GST. So the GST percentage is almost 18%. So whatever system you buy, 18% is towards the government and the rest. So I would not like to paint a very negative picture of this, but in certain models, the ROI is fairly skewed. But when you do it as a community or as a scale, so when you see larger projects where you have residential spaces, that's where it has tremendous impact, where it helps bring the combined energy footprint down.
Okay.
And for the residential owner who has erratic power or has challenges or prefers the comfort of having continuous power, then there is another model for them. So you can't have a return on investment on comfort.
Interesting. So let me ask you a question that you may find a little silly, but a lot of small homes, independent homes or small shops have a small generator or an inverter pack, etc. Can a rooftop solar, be used for a limited use when there's a power shedding, for me to run 3 lights and 2 fans?
You see, this is the most fundamental level of, I feel this is the deep impact part of solar, which helps rural businesses or small businesses, right? Like very small businesses. And this is not expensive to do. Okay. And with the Desi Jugaad, this is being done in many ways.
I see.
With current diesel prices, it costs upwards of 34 rupees a unit.
Okay.
While you are buying power from the grid at 5.5 or 6. So, or, then they're forced to go back to oil lamps and things like that, which is bad, right? So, with a solar panel combined with a set of batteries, we still get inquiries from small, shops who want to start up this, where 3-4 lights are all they require and a fan. And all they need to invest is in one solar panel, a charge controller, and a set of batteries, run a DC system, and they're good. And it has a good life because they themselves don't know how long that business is going to run, or are they going to scale up.
Interesting. And yet, there seems to be another myth about solar, which is the batteries. Some people say the batteries take too much space. Some people say the batteries don't have enough storage capacity. Some people say you have to replace the battery very frequent. So I'd love to get your perspective.
See, this is engineering, right? Finally. So most people at the time of putting out their requirements are fairly conservative, saying, oh no, I just need 3 lights and a fan.
Yeah.
Slowly 3 lights and a fan and a mobile charger and a TV and another. And so the initial engineering would have been that, okay, let me design a battery for just this and let me keep a factor of safety. So one part is true. See, the lead acid battery, the multiple battery technologies. And what you traditionally see around with the highest is the lead acid batteries, the wet lead acid batteries and ones. They are extremely bulky. They're workhorses in India because they are all over the place, easily available. And they have one negative aspect, is that they self-discharge. If you were to leave the battery by itself, they would just discharge by themselves. So they're not very efficient. They do take a lot of space. But that is why there was a Nobel Prize given to a gentleman for creation, for a team for the lithium-ion batteries, because that's a big game changer. Where the size ratio is maybe 1/10. Your mobile phone battery, for example.
Yeah.
And you can discharge it all you want. I mean, you can just shut off your mobile phone and leave it for a year, and it will have discharged just by 1%. Versus a lead acid battery in 1 week, if you've not charged it, its life is literally gone. So, I mean, it's a big technological aspect. So we do not see. It's not to say that lead acid is bad, but the ecological footprint of all of these batteries also needs to be looked in. Different applications need different sizes of batteries. And if you want batteries, you have to create the space for it.
Right. Very interesting. So my next question to you is now on a slightly more a larger scale.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about solar energy and the opportunity for solar energy and its size in our country.
Yeah. See, the thing is, India's power requirement as an emerging economy is a constant. Despite COVID, despite all of these things, our demand for power constantly is going up. We have a requirement of excessive of 175 gigawatts of power, and there is a small shortfall right now. But the thing is, the more power that's available and more energy that's available, it keeps the cost of manufacturing, etc., down. And capacity addition needs to constantly be done, because if industry is to scale up, we have a growing population, more cities, more towns coming up. So there will constantly be this requirement. And that's the nature of the economy as such, right? So renewables, if you look at it as a collective thing, have a very good footprint. Like you have certain wind belts, you can generate certain amount of wind energy. You can generate, we have certain amount of hydel. But with solar, it's the simplest thing to deploy. Plug and play. And this, I would say, is the reason why solar has scaled up by so much, right?
Okay.
And what happens is there are no more small plants. You only have everything running into megawatts and megawatts. India boasts of some of the largest solar plants because it's plug and play, and we have large companies like Adani and now Reliance and Sterling Wilson who are deploying these.
Okay.
But there are, there's a positive demand for these things. But this addresses certain questions at the center and state level. But I still think one should evaluate these policies, because we don't have, when you could put it on your rooftop and meet the demand with a small loss of energy, we still end up putting these large solar plants in fairly ecological sensitive areas, really far off, and have the transmission losses which are equivalent to a thermal power plant or something of that sort.
Right.
And rooftop languishes while large solar grows. So it's very competitive. The second,
Very interesting. So I've got time for one more question, and I'm going to switch from rural that you spoke about to urban.
Yes.
And most of urban India is now seeing a huge growth of condominiums.
Yes.
How? And condominiums can't say that they've got massive roofs because they've all gone up vertically.
Yep. What
is your solution for condominiums around our country to use solar?
Yeah. So the thing is, I've analyzed this in many ways. Like we get inquiries from Mumbai and the works. The roof to building ratio is like area ratio is 100th in some cases. So how I see this is that from a climate change perspective, what people do is they have a tried and tested formula that power backup will come from a diesel generator, and the grid is supplied by the government or the private power supplier. But solar can be used for the common areas. See, the thing is, a place like Germany doesn't use only roofs. They've used their facades, the works. They look at every square foot where sunlight falls to maximize. We have abundant sunlight. However, in places like in these condominiums, what you can do is you can maybe offset your swimming pool running costs. You can offset your elevators. You can offset parking lights. You can reduce the usage of not just the grid where you have outages and you use your diesel. You're calling me from Gurgaon. I mean, summer, the number of hours that generators run is phenomenal till date. Solar efficiency is improving. Size of panels is, are reducing. The power generation capacity is much higher. It can definitely fill the gaps for a lot of these places.
Wonderful. So, Saswat, let me ask you one more question.
Yeah, please.
Despite such a huge increase in power generation, whether it is solar or hydel or the more traditional, thermal, nuclear, wind, we never seem to reach a situation where we say, now there will be no power shedding. And we're going through a very difficult time, even now in Haryana, for example, where I live.
Yeah.
Do you see India ever becoming surplus on a sustained basis, rather than, this month we have surplus, next month we'll be deficient?
See, this whole surplus thing is itself a computation, right? In the sense that if I shut off power, you will not know what is the demand in that place. So you'll say that if I shut off, say, parts of Gurgaon, if I shut off 10%, your demand will show 90% of what was actually there. And then you say that, I supplied 90%, so I met, right? A number of outages. There are brownouts and the blackouts. The peak power management is one of the reasons. Like, there are very, very affluent societies where India's per capita consumption is substantially high in short, small concentrations. Say Gurgaon, for example. Extremely wealthy individuals with very high demand for power and unsustainable practices. But you can't change that right now immediately. So capacity addition is the first thing. Like, can the transformers locally do that?
Right.
Even if there is power waiting at the grid level, if the cables, the infrastructure cannot support it, you will have outages. And then the line wala has to come, replace a fuse, change the cable, things like that. You have to see that as much as solar is grown, please look at how air conditioning demand has increased in this country.
Correct.
Which is phenomenal. And there is hardly any non-air conditioned space in most places today. And that's considered almost as a minimum comfort today. So the India being surplus in energy would need a lot of disruptive technology to get us there.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Saswat, on that note, thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me at such length about solar energy, about your area of specialization, rooftop solar. What are the amazing opportunities we have in our country, and what are some of the challenges? And I keep hoping someday that I will not ever have to hear the word blackout, brownout, or any outage as far as power is concerned. And someday, hopefully in my life, we will see that in our country, because I remember when we moved to Gurgaon in 2000, we were always told this is the Millennium City and there will never be a problem. There's not been a single year when there has not been a problem. There's always been a problem. So,
if I can just butt in there, the thing is, there are solutions to prevent that.
Yeah.
Right. The thing is, what is the cost going into that? See, the thing is, the utilities are services provided. They have a different thing, but people with the means can afford a zero outage kind of scenario. And feel less guilty as it's a combination of energy storage and solar.
Correct.
But again, the why should the individual take the responsibility for it is a larger question.
Zero outage based on having a generator is not the answer.
Absolutely.
But thank you very much for speaking to me. It's been a great conversation, and I look forward to keeping in touch. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.